This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 177 about Iron Fist Season 2, episode 3, This Deadly Secret. Welcome back, fellow Defenders, to this episode of Defenders TV Podcast, episode 177, where we're talking about Iron Fist 203, This Deadly Secret. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow Defenders. I'm one of your other hosts, John.
And unfortunately, Chris can't be with us for this particular episode. It does happen, unfortunately. Life gets in the way. Chris is moving house at the moment, so unfortunately can't join us for this particular podcast.
Yes, Chris is off building his very own Kunlun in Dublin, yes.
Yeah, but he will be back with us for a later episode, later on in the season. So we're going to talk about this episode in full spoiler-filled detail, obviously. And again, we are recording in advance of the episodes being released, so hopefully we're going to get some feedback in, which will drop in at the end of the episode. But at the moment, we're watching it ahead of time, so we don't actually know what the reaction of most people is to the season, but we've been enjoying the second season of Iron Fist so far.
Yes, really enjoying the pacing on this, loving the vibe. That centering of the dojo and Colleen and Danny's life around Chinatown, I think has really, really worked, to be honest. I'm really enjoying that. So we really want to hear your thoughts on this, so you can get in contact with us over on our website at defenderstvpodcast.com. You can leave an email at feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. Join our Facebook group over at facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV Podcast, and you can leave voicemail on our website up to 90 seconds of your thoughts. And we really look forward to hearing your views, thoughts, discussion points on all things to do with Season 2 Iron Fist.
Absolutely. And if you want to make sure that you get our episodes as they come out, you can subscribe over on the website, as John said, on defenderstvpodcast.com, on any good or evil podcast catcher.
Yeah, I think with that, let's get on with the episode details. Derek. What do you have for us?
Yeah, as we've been talking about on the previous episodes, this title for this episode, This Deadly Secret, was also taken from a comic book. It was taken from issue number 99 of Power Man and Iron Fist, which is an issue from 1993, written by Kurt Busiek. And along with the main cast of Danny, Colleen, and Misty and Luke, this issue featured appearances from some major characters that we've seen in some of the TV shows before. It had Raphael Scarf in there, had DW, one of your favourite characters.
Yes.
DW Griffith in the comic books, and had Shades in there as well, and Comanche. So lots of characters that we've seen over on Luke Cage. Unfortunately, if this was an adaptation of that book, some of those characters aren't alive anymore to be able to appear in the episode.
Yes, they won't be able to feature in any crossover because they have literally, in Luke Cage, crossed over to the other side.
Unfortunately.
Yes.
But on with the rest of the episode details. This episode was written by Tatiana Suarez Pico. She was a staff writer on the show Parenthood, and also wrote an episode of the show A Series of Unfortunate Events, a TV show on Netflix as well. But this is her first time over in the Marvel Universe as well, so welcome on board, Tatiana. And the episode was directed by Tao Frazier. He has directed a fair few great TV shows, including an episode of Penny Dreadful, John.
I love that show. Absolutely love that show. It's now gone. It's 3 seasons. I would definitely recommend, if you love all those creatures from the Victorian period, vampires, werewolves, Frankenstein, then definitely check out Penny Dreadful. Really good TV show. Highly recommended from me.
Yeah, and they've tapped a few directors from Penny Dreadful for a couple of the Marvel shows in the past. Tao is also confirmed as a director for an episode of Daredevil Season 3, which hopefully will be coming up later this year as well. So,
excellent
look
stuff.
forward to that. John, do you want to tell us what that gave us with your synopsis for the episode?
Sure. With seemingly no end in sight to the gang warfare in Chinatown, Danny Rand's promise to Matt Murdock to protect his city leaves him increasingly absent from the dojo. Colleen worries about the state of Danny's mind following the destruction of Kunlun and Midland Circle. Meanwhile, Ward Meacham's state of mind fares no better, as he tries to discover who informed his sister, Joy, that he is in recovery. Still unsettled, Ward goes to talk to Danny, where he tells him that Davos and Joy are partners, and Ward suggests a dinner invite to the dojo so they can learn more about this unexpected relationship. As dinner time arrives, an awkwardness descends over the table, and Ward is nowhere to be seen. With meatballs being pushed around the plates, Colleen calls out the pretense that exists between these former friends, and as grievances are aired, the tension is ramped up as Joy learns that the idea came from Ward himself. Davos and Joy leave the tense dinner, but only after Davos spots the surveillance photos of Danny Rand, and they both head to confront a familiar face with a different demeanour who they have commissioned to track Danny Rand. With Davos and Joy gone, Colleen and Danny go to protect Mrs. Yang at the parley. As they arrive, there is no sign of her husband, Mr. Yang.
Yeah, definitely keeping the fate of Mr. Yang from the end of episode 2 under wraps in this episode. We don't see much about him at all. We just know that he's kind of off the table. They don't mention whether he's dead or alive.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I kind of assumed that move that Davos made kind of effectively exploded his heart or something like that. So, it's interesting. I'm still kind of assuming he's dead, to be honest, but maybe he's not, because we haven't really had any confirmation of that. I think Mrs. Yang really just refers to the fact that he can't make it. But obviously, maybe trying to protect the strength of the Hatchet gang.
Yes, yeah, I think she's trying to put some pieces into place. I think she says that he had to go away on business, is what the way she's covering it up anyway. So perhaps she's just hiding this fact until people have accepted her as the leader of the Hatchet gang now. But very interesting, because the character went from being effectively a card-playing elite woman of much riches to possibly the new leader of the Hatchet gang over the course of, one episode. So quite interesting.
Yeah, it'd be really cool. I think, though, let's get into our top 5 points, our spoiler-filled 5 points. And our first point is the spirit of Matt Murdock. It still hangs heavy, really, here over Danny Rand.
Yeah.
And it's kind of really interesting because it's almost like we just see a few little chinks between Colleen and Danny. And I don't mean that is going to sort of spell the end to them, but it's kind of realistic points of friction between these two people that are a couple, because she's waking up alone. He is coming in very early in the morning, covered in blood. And she's really trying to ask him, are you okay? Because you're not spending time at the dojo, you're not sleeping, you're going out, you're using this Iron Fist. I mean, I think she goes, how many times did you light it up?
Yeah.
And I think there's a real worry from Colleen that, what is Danny's kind of mindset at this moment in time, given what Matt Murdock asked him to do, given the arrival of Davos back into his life and Joy, plus then the Midland Circle destruction as well. So there's a lot playing on Danny's mind here, and it does lead to an awkwardness between Danny and Colleen where he tries to deflect. I really liked how this big event from Defenders, is still leaking into Iron Fist season 2 here, and between Danny and Colleen. So this was really good, I thought.
Yeah, and as we talked about on Luke Cage, it's nice to see these kind of pieces from Defenders bleeding into this new season. It didn't really happen that much in Jessica Jones. There was a very different storyline on there with hardly any connection at all to the Defenders, but it's a really important moment. Matt Murdock telling Danny to protect his city, and Danny taking that on board as his new purpose now that he's lost Kunlun. And as we mentioned last episode, he's also lost his big enemy. The Hand are gone as well. So as Colleen calls out here, what is he supposed to do as the immortal Iron Fist, sworn protector of Kunlun and defender against the Hand, when two of those things are gone? He's just now the immortal Iron Fist, and that's it, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's really interesting, I think, as well. Jessica Jones season 2 really did seem to want to put that break between the Defenders and season 2 of Jessica Jones, and any reference to Midland Circle, it was like, I want to get as far away as possible from that. I don't want to be this superhero, ultimately.
True.
Here, and a bit like with Luke Cage, this stuff is permeating into the storylines in different ways, and I quite like how that is being done. And I think you would expect, definitely, that Iron Fist, given that he was so central to the Defenders and the plans of the Japan would have this sort of greater connection, I think, to the Defenders. Really, really good. But I think Colleen has her own little thing going on here at the moment. And, that's moving along pretty slowly here. This investigation into Frank Choi's shop and this box with the comb and the brush from her childhood. We're seeing reference to this in each of the episodes, but at the moment it's not really moving along very quickly, and there's an air of mystery still around Frank Choi. Where is he? And what this box is all about with that inlay of the Colleen Wing family crest. And it's really intriguing, and I'm kind of wishing they would move it along a bit more, because I really want to see what this is all about, really. But I do like the fact that, we see her breaking and entering into Frank Choi's shop, where she's followed by BB as well. So, again, this connection to this younger gang filled with sort of teenagers who are trying to push in. And a little bit of a rapport beginning to be built up here with BB.
Yeah, well, money talks, as BB said. It's quite interesting. We see Colleen obviously reaching out again to him, trying to tell him, we have ways of helping you. This is what I do in my normal life, is setting kids up like you with jobs and food and accommodation, and come next time you're following me, follow me to this place where we can help you out, kind of thing. But yeah, John, much like you're saying about this idea of Colleen's investigation, I'm wondering, is there something behind it? It does seem to be going a bit slower, and I'm wondering, is it because she's a bit scared of what she might find, so she's not following the leads as quickly without a little push from Danny into looking into it? It feels like she's kind of going to Danny, he's fighting this stuff, and she doesn't want to get into something that will consume her mind, because she's got so much other stuff on, and she's also trying to protect Danny. So is she going to be going down the same kind of path as Danny if she investigates this thing too far?
She's frightened as to what she might find, or maybe she has an inkling as to what
it could be.
It could be, and what she might find and how that will impact her. And maybe she doesn't really want to continue down that path. And so she's doing it very tentatively. However, we do see her here find a fairly big clue for her and about maybe what's happened to Frank Choi in the form of this ledger. So that's kind of sellotaped to the underneath of his throne.
Yeah, of his favorite chair. That's right. But she can't translate it, as we hear. So it's a clue, we think, and she thinks, but we don't see what it is and where it's going. So again, this stuff isn't on the screen about whether she's scared about what she might find, but it feels like there's something there that may come out later on in some of the other episodes, because she does feel a little bit resistant or a little bit slow in following up these moments. But when she follows them up, she goes hell for leather at it. She breaks into the shop of Frank Choi. That is a big move from Colleen. So interesting. It's something that we need to keep an eye on for the future episodes.
I still think it's a bit Mother Craney, to be honest, with that sigil or that family emblem there. So I'm still holding to that theory anyway.
Cool.
But on to point 2.
Yes.
The recovery of Ward Meacham.
Yeah. Kind of recovery.
Yeah, exactly.
I have to say, once again, a fantastic scene from Ward Meacham as he sits in the circle of recovery, telling everyone around him that they're a-holes and giving them the finger. It's just a great moment where he's really realised that someone in that group has spoiled the idea that he's in recovery and he's going through this pain for his sister. He's effectively been keeping this back, hopefully to get to a point of recovery where he's able to apologise to Joy for everything that he's done to her over the years because of his pain and because of the things he's gone through, that he's going to seek recovery out. But that's been taken away from him by somebody in the group telling her. It's what he believes. So it could be anything. She could be having him followed. We see that she's done that in this episode with Danny, so possibly that's how it's been found out, but he's calling out every other member of the group as being somebody that could have turned him in.
Do you trust his sponsor? I mean, I kind of feel that she seems pretty genuine, actually, and I'm not convinced that maybe she has snitched on him or maybe fed information to Joy directly or to someone maybe that Joy has tracking Ward, but I still think she's quite genuine, and I think we see that towards the end as well, where he goes to his sponsor. She seems like she wants to help him, and that this situation with his sister is toxic, and if he doesn't deal with it, he's not going to be able to have a decent relationship with anyone ever again.
Yeah.
Like it's really eating at him. So I trust his sponsor, but I just wonder, whether ultimately I will get burnt on that.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because with TV shows like this, there's always that thing where you're looking at every character going, can I trust that person? Can I trust that person? And that's kind of playing into what they're doing with Ward in this episode. He doesn't know whether you can trust these people. He's only just met them in recovery. But in the real world, Narcotics Anonymous, this whole 12-step program or 10-step program that we hear about in Alcoholics Anonymous and in Narcotics Anonymous, one of those steps is you taking ownership and apologizing to the people that you've hurt. It is your responsibility as the person going through this treatment or this recovery. So the idea that she would take that step away from him, because it is a step that you're supposed to go through yourself, the idea that she would take that away from him feels wrong. It feels like something that wouldn't happen in the real world unless she's an absolutely terrible sponsor, which I suppose by sleeping with Ward, she's not that great of a sponsor. He is going through recovery and she's given him a completely different way around it, or a way to avoid going through the recovery. So I'm not sure. I know what you mean. And yeah, there's definitely a question over her, but I do love that we see that wonderful hair reward at play in this episode when he's calling out everybody in the room for possibly betraying him. You see that Ward hair where it's all completely a bit of a mess because he's going through problems.
Yeah, he's looking pretty rough here in this episode, and I think the hair definitely gives it away.
Yeah.
Like after confronting his recovery group in Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous, he heads over to the dojo to talk through these issues that he has with Danny. This is a really nice moment because obviously in season 1, it was Ward and Danny that were at one another.
Yeah.
And it changed around by the end of season 1 and has continued here through into season 2. And of course, it's at the opposite for Joy and Danny, really. And I really like how, they're talking through these issues, but what results from this is that he reveals, or he at least exposes, this sort of slightly unexpected, slightly odd relationship or partnership that Davos and Joy have, that they're working together.
Yeah.
This is a nice moment where the suspicion begins to really catch up with Danny Rand. I think you see it in his face here as they're talking this through, and this is where the great dinner plan is hatched between these two, which ultimately does lead to, I think, one of my favorite points in this episode.
Oh, definitely. This is the dinner with David or Davos or Davos, is it? Something like that?
Yeah.
You mean Davos? I love that he's being called David by everybody in New York. Is he going to rename himself that? Was this possibly a thing from comic books that when Davos went into hiding, he used another personality called David at some point? Is this a reference that I'm missing from the comics? But it is quite interesting seeing Ward and Danny interact in this way again and seeing their friendship. They have a bit of a joke with each other, and it's nice to see the two of them reacting that way to each other after what we saw in season 1 where they were at each other's throats for the beginning of the season. So it's nice to see that go on. But yeah, we do see that this dinner does take place, but Ward doesn't attend because, again, we're seeing how broken a man he is, that he can't stand up for the things that he's done in the past, and he doesn't want to face up to them. So, as you say, his sponsor telling him that if he doesn't fix this relationship with his sister, then that's it. He'll never be able to fix anything again. So hopefully he does, because we like Ward.
Absolutely. I think another little aside here is in terms of Joy and Davos, we do see Joy talking with Sophia Rios. It further sort of opens up more of what Joy is trying to do here, where she's trying to partner with Sophia Rios, who's an ex-Rand R&D person, so that she can work with her on some of the divested patents that she's gotten in this portfolio.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a nice little side as well. You see something a bit more, is this to compete directly with Rand Enterprises? These patents, we heard in the last episode that Ward is really suspicious that, yes, some of these patents are absolute trash, but within those, we need to go sift through them because there could be something that is trying to be hidden by Joy here. So,
definitely. Yeah.
This is a nice little development here just on this side.
Yeah, and I know we don't know anything about the patent that she's talking about. There's one specific patent that she says that she's taken and that it will change the world economy when it's implemented, because she believes that Sophia can get this done. She says there's a warehouse out there that's ready and waiting to manufacture whatever this thing is, but we don't know much about it. So it's just, again, something to keep an eye on for Joy's story, is what exactly it is that she's creating. So that's going to be quite interesting to see. Good aside, though, John. But if you do want to know what it is, you have to sign an NDA, apparently.
Apparently, because we have dinner at the dojo.
Yes, point
three, yes. This was fantastic for me. I loved so many different aspects of it. I mean, just the general level of tension and awkward glances.
So good.
Between Davos and Colleen, between Colleen and Joy, between Danny and Joy. It was just fantastic to see this. Where Joy is being a little bit snidey with Colleen, who's in the kitchen preparing the meal. Danny's out back with Davos, grilling the meatballs over a barbecue. I love the fact that we see the spaghetti trick. Does it stick? And like Joy's kind of, what's all that about? And then she goes, I wouldn't take you for the domestic type. As Colleen goes, I'm not, and does a real nifty flick of the knife and sticks it into the chopping board. I love the fact that Colleen is just so strong.
Yeah.
It's such a strong personality because she challenges everything. She won't let things go when she's effectively being sort of put down by Joy here. I mean, you don't even know that the compliments that Joy gives when she comes into the dojo, that she means them, that it's in any way sincere. So this whole evening dinner and the awkwardness that it throws up is just fantastic for me. I loved it. I really, really did like it.
It's really good fun, isn't it? Because effectively Joy's trying to fill silence that's in the room. There's that silence of they arrive in, they shake hands, they give each other kisses and say, welcome, and then nothing is said by anybody until Joy, with her hilarious moment, going, your place is great, it's a great neighbourhood, really. I don't ever come this far east, which just sounds so offensive to Chinatown at all, you know. Colleen takes it instantly. I love Colleen talking to Danny later on, going, if she makes one more domestic crack about me, I'm gonna deck her. She's not making friends with Colleen at all. But Colleen is the one that actually kind of changes the vibe in the room when she kind of says to everybody, look, let's drop all this crap and talk about our real feelings here. That's the only reason Danny's invited you over, is to see if we can salvage the relationship between the four of us. And all of us need to talk about our issues, put them on the table. And it doesn't go well at all.
No, not at all. I mean, in fairness, I agree. It's what needed to be done. Colleen has absolutely the right way forward here, because everyone is tiptoeing around that elephant in the room.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately, Danny does get a bit of truth from Joy. It is a really interesting notion, and I'm still not entirely sure whether I've bought into it. I can get the fact that Joy is angry at Ward and Danny for keeping what they did secret from her. However, is it not actually her father's fault, fundamentally, in that he told Ward never to tell Joy, at least not until he was ready or it was the right time. And obviously Danny didn't know about it until he had arrived back in town. So I do understand Joy's anger at the two of them. I'm not entirely sure I fully understand the depth of that anger to the point where maybe she's looking to destroy their life. But then, she really did get a rough end of the deal with Harold Meacham in season 1. So there's just sometimes I get a little niggle as to why the depth of her anger is so focused on these two, when I think it's ultimately her father's fault.
Yeah, I understand that, but actually I don't think they were ever given the chance to explain to her exactly what they meant. And I like that Joy isn't saying, I hate you, Danny, here. She's covering it up slightly. She's saying, I hate everything that happened since you came back in my life, Danny. is kind of the way she's saying.
That's a good way of describing it, definitely.
But I do think Ward is a little bit more at fault than Danny, because he kept the whole thing secret for 15 years.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what drove him to the drugs, and that's what drove him into this situation, because his father still had control of the company and just working through Ward the whole time. Effectively, every big decision that was made in the company was actually made by the father, not by Ward. And fellow defenders, if you don't remember exactly what it was that was said in season 1, what was said to her father was, if anybody else finds out about this other than Ward, we will kill them. So when Danny says to Joy that we were trying to protect you, and she says, well, I can protect myself, well, actually the full force of the Hand would have come down and killed her if they had told her about it. That's what the threat was to Harold and Ward Meacham.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can definitely see why she is angry. I can see why she is doing what she's doing, maybe partnering with Davos, although I think their explanation to Colleen and Danny in the dojo is so sketchy. This idea that they bumped into one another in Paris. You know, he heard Madame Meacham wafting over the air around a Parisian cafe. It just feels so sketchy. And I mean, I don't expect that Colleen and Danny believe a word of it. So, you know, with all this awkwardness, with all this tension of the past, there is also that suspicion of the present, the current moment around the dinner table. And I just think it is played out so nicely. But ultimately, Davos is the one to crack first with all this pretense, where he has to kind of go and just get out of the room. And he goes to the bathroom, and on his way back he sees this bunch of photographs that have been put underneath the door earlier in the day by Mary.
Yeah, these surveillance photographs, so he instantly knows what those are about. We'll talk about that in just a second. It's interesting that Davos has the first crack at Colleen as well. He criticises her for the fact that she didn't take the opportunity to kill Bakuto, the former Hand member that was her former teacher. He gives another crack at her again, slagging off the fact that she was a member of the Hand and didn't know it, and he believes that that's not true. So once again, Davos and Colleen cannot fix this issue. But then we also see that the relationship breaks down completely between Joy and Danny again, when Danny, kind of stupidly, I think, when she was about to leave, says, this was actually all Ward's idea and he's going to be here in a minute. It's like, oh no, hang on a second. You mean you conspired together once again to pull the wool over Joy's eyes? You know, it's like another little knife that Danny doesn't mean to push into her, but does.
It's not really the best thing. I mean, ultimately, I actually thought with Ward not turning up because he's in such a mess is that they dodged a bullet. And Danny, I mean, it's kind of just a little stupid, really.
What do you do?
It's like, why did you just do that? They were leaving anyway. There was absolutely no point, because it does just inflame the situation. And I love how Joy comes across as so angry. And this is just another nail in that coffin. Furthering her motivation to carry out this plan. So really, really good. And it has that real implication, because I think moving on to point 4, you know, these photos that cause Davos to really kind of go, we need to get out of here. They're onto something, because these photos were commissioned by Joy and Davos for a Miss Walker, who is tracking and doing surveillance on Danny Rand. And of course, I love it because, you know, we see this different side of Mary. Mary and Miss Walker, these two people within the same body. And I think what goes down in Mary's apartment is just fantastic, where this other side of her, this other person that she becomes through the dissociative disorder, stands up to Davos in such a good way, with the 2 katanas around his neck, where she's like, I'll sort this. You know, this is the confident side of her, the person that is highly skilled, highly trained, doing what she's doing, whereas the other Mary, who put these photos under the door at the dojo, you know, Danny runs after her, is kind of a bit more bumbling. You know, more nervous, more skittish. Here we see someone who is very calm, very collected, despite being challenged by both Joy and Davos says, I'm still in control. This can be rectified. There isn't an issue. You know, maybe Miss Walker needed to leave a few more post-it notes to Mary.
Maybe. I love that there's this internal conflict between the Mary and Walker side. And also, can I just say, I'm so happy they made this choice of it not being a mystery who Walker was for more than this episode, that it was mentioned at the start by Mary that Walker is the one taking these photographs, and at the end of the episode you find out that Walker is Mary Walker, because in the comic books the character of Typhoid Mary is Mary Walker. So we knew, I think you even actually said it by mistake in the first episode, you said her name was Mary Walker, because that's the character name, that's the title of the character. So I'm glad it wasn't kept as something that it was a mystery for an episode, even, because
it doesn't need to be.
It doesn't need to be, exactly.
Absolutely.
But yes,
the mystery just has to be with Colleen and Danny as to this Mary in their life.
Yeah.
At the moment, they have not met Miss Walker.
Yeah.
And certainly not that they know. There may have been a moment where Miss Walker came out in the dojo, but the running water soon put paid to that. So, yeah, I mean, that's where the mystery needs to be, and the audience needs to be viewing that for sure.
Exactly. One other thing I really liked about this scene in Mary's apartment, where we have Davos striking back against Mary after he gets the katanas to her neck, and you just see a reaction from Joy once again, kind of that moment of realization of how aggressive Davos can be.
Yeah.
It feels like she's partnered with Davos. She knows what his goal is, and she's joining him on that path. But there are those flashes with him of the kind of violent nature that he has underneath the surface, where Joy's not in control of Davos. They are partnering together. That whole pretense that was there at the dinner, for example, that didn't last very long. Joy tried to make it so that Danny would think they were all friends and then would stop investigating. That was the whole purpose on her side of going to the dinner. But Davos couldn't hold up that pretense for more than about 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Davos absolutely wears his fanatical heart on his sleeve. He finds it really tough to hide his truth and his feelings here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, Joy has a lot of management to do with that guy, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. But that's it for the different side of Mary. I, again, have to say Alice Eve is playing a great role here.
Oh, fantastic.
The two completely different characters that we see from the start and end of this episode. So hopefully we're going to get to see a lot more of Typhoid Mary in the rest of the season. Really cool. Let's get on to our final point. Point number 5, the Dragon's Baton, or Mrs. Yang's Parlay.
Yeah, I'm really liking Mrs. Yang. I love her bringing Danny and Colleen in to accompany her, to protect her during this parlay with the Golden Tigers, the other Triad gang. I just think it's really, really good. I like the fact that she has stepped into her husband's role here.
Yeah.
You know, she shows this dragon's baton, which is the symbol of power within the Hatchet's Triad. And I thought it was really, really good. And I loved her use of the hairpin as well, at the end.
Yeah.
Again, there's a little bit of mystery as to, you know, where is Mr. Yang? Is he dead? Is he trying to recover? Has he gone to Hong Kong? To what extent was that technique by Davos, you know, mortal and deadly? I hope he isn't taken off the table, because I really like how bringing Danny and Colleen into this underworld and so personal, you know, they are there to protect the Hatchet, the leader of the Hatchet gang. And it really feels almost on a par with Luke Cage suddenly being the head honcho in Harlem.
Right.
You know, they're not afraid, like, say, Matt Murdock, to associate with people who are actually part of the problem. They're trying to fix it to some extent within, or they have some moderating influence on it. And I like that kind of relationship, because sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. You know, in this case, Danny has been able to get them to parlay, but of course it all kind of goes sideways very quickly when they seem to see some action outside that looks like there is a trap being sprung by the Golden Tigers.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because we don't actually see what that trap was. We see that Danny sees something outside. He questions a couple of the Golden Tigers with his fists, but none of them tell him anything. None of them tell him that it was them that set something up, that this was supposed to take down Mrs. Mrs. Yang, and Mrs. Yang is spirited away by Colleen, I suppose. It's also quite interesting that Danny has his mask, has his Iron Fist costume on as such. What I find interesting about that is because Mrs. Yang pulled up beside Danny and Colleen in the street and says to him, I know who you are, I know what you can do, so do the Golden Tigers. Can you accompany me to the parlay as my security at the parlay because of what you can do? And he puts the outfit on. It kind of feels like, well, if they all know who you are, why are you wearing the face mask, Danny?
Yeah.
Colleen isn't. Colleen doesn't wear any kind of face mask.
She's the one that's kind of exposing herself the most. But yeah. I do think it was a nice touch. Yeah, I love seeing the yellow mask, sort of the inverted yellow mask, I suppose. I love the fact that when she turns up as well, one of the Golden Tigers goes, weapons please, and she goes, he is the weapon. Really nice touch. And I love with the parlay being broken, great uppercut to the table using the Iron Fist from Danny. That was a nice little touch.
Yeah.
But I love the fact here that Mrs. Yang effectively comes to help Colleen, who has been knocked to the floor by one of the Golden Tigers as she's trying to get Mrs. Yang to safety. She steps up to the plate to protect Colleen with this hairpin to the eye of the tiger, I suppose.
Nice.
But one of the things I think we discussed after the episode was it felt a little weird that Colleen was being beaten here by this guy. She was taken down too easily.
Definitely.
I think we both kind of thought that she would be able to kind of deal with this guy, this one guy. But ultimately, he seems to get the better of her.
I kind of hoped that in a scene like that, you'd have Colleen and Mrs. Yang being followed by two guys. While Colleen's taking out one guy, then Mrs. Yang is putting the hairpin in the eye of the other guy. It just felt a bit off that Colleen would be taken down by an underling the way she is, because we've seen her being quite an exceptional fighter in many seasons so far.
Absolutely.
So it felt like you could probably have done two guys chasing them down, and while Colleen's being distracted, beating up one of them, then Mrs. Yang takes out the other one, so when Colleen knocks out the one that's been chasing her and knocks him to the floor, she sees that Mrs. Yang can take care of herself, But this feels like they've depowered Colleen almost somehow.
Yeah, it did. And I mean, I was then trying to rationalize, maybe why was that? And I just thought, she's tried not to get involved with fighting, with helping Danny. So maybe she's just slightly out of practice or, she caught off balance. I'm glad that she was helped by Mrs. Yang. And again, I think for me, I'm really enjoying Mrs. Yang. I think she's been played really, really cool. And I love how the treatment of some of these minor characters who are essential to the plot or to some of the larger characters in the series. It's even like Ward's sponsor. I'm really enjoying her in that role. I think she adds a lot to Ward's dynamic. And so I think it is absolute testament to this casting that you get such a great little scene. Yeah, I was more than happy that Mrs. Yang took her hairpin and took out the Golden Tiger.
Pretty brutal. That's the end of our top 5 points for this episode. I don't think I have any notes about the episode. I think we've talked about everything that I wanted to talk about. Is there any notes that you have, John?
Yeah, I just have one. I loved the two different coloured eyes of Mary Walker. One blue, one green. During that standoff with Davos, you get this close-up of her face, and that is a neat little touch. Just to, again, further highlight this dual personality of Mary Walker. So that was a nice little touch.
That's interesting, yeah. It's like David Bowie had his
Absolutely.
two different coloured eyes, didn't he? Very cool, yeah, nice touch. Do you know what I remembered while I was editing the first two episodes of Iron Fist? We never actually mentioned that there has been a slight change to the opening titles. We used to talk about the opening titles for about 15 minutes at the start of these shows. The only change this season, they've kept the music and they've kept the style, but they have changed the opening titles to have the green of Iron Fist over the names of the cast members and that kind of stuff. When I went back and looked at season 1, I did notice that the titles were kind of a grey colour. They weren't very vibrant, and it feels like they just made this very minor change and made them a bit more vibrant for season 2. But just that we didn't mention it, just in case anybody's wondering why the titles look slightly different from last season. That's all it was.
Cool. Well, on to the defence. Derek, do you defend this episode of Iron Fist?
I definitely defend this episode. This has been a really good one. This moment, again, I think we've talked about it in a couple of other reviews of TV shows that we've talked about. Putting some of your major characters in a room and making them hash out their problems is always a great thing for me. Having Ward do that with a new character while everything else is going on with Danny and Joy and Colleen and Davos, it always makes for a really exciting, interesting show to have those moments where you have them all kind of lay everything on the table and criticize each other, and this is no exception. This is really good. And once again, third episode in a row now, we've had another big fight sequence, including Danny Rand, showing how much this fight choreography has been done for this show. You know, no comic goes by, really, in Iron Fist's run for 20 or 30 years where there's no fight in there. So I'm glad they brought that into the TV show as well. So overall, another great episode of Iron Fist and some very intriguing mysteries to get onto for the next episode. So overall, yeah, definitely defend this one. John, do you defend episode 203 of Iron Fist, This Deadly Secret?
I do defend this episode. I would give this 4 awkward meatballs out of 5. I loved how this built. I think for me, the absolute cherry on top of this episode is the dinner between Colleen, Danny, Joy and Davos. I loved that. The absolute tension. You could cut it with a knife. I love that Mary and her relationship now with Joy and Davos has been exposed. And which Mary are we going to get moving forward into the next few episodes? You know, are we going to get the timid, sort of slightly bumbling Mary, or are we going to get the seemingly more confident, more ice cool, and certainly more proficient with a weapon, this Miss Walker that has been hired by Joy and Davos? I really liked the parlay. I like that it went south very quickly, and hopefully we'll see what comes out of that as well. So again, it's really setting stuff up. I think maybe there was an element where it started slightly slowly, and I really want to see how this childhood heirloom, this box that was dropped at the community centre where Colleen works, how that's going to feature. It feels like that is rumbling along quite slowly, but seemingly to me, I've got this impression that it's going to be absolutely monumental to this story for some reason.
Okay.
And I might be completely wrong. So I really want to see how that pushes along for sure. And yeah, I just thought this was a really solid, good episode of Iron Fist. It's really being nicely paced as well. I'm liking this pacing as well.
Yeah, genuinely really, really good. And John, question, would you ever barbecue meatballs?
No.
It seemed like a really weird one, especially when Davos looks at them and goes, what are these? And why are you cooking them like that? Is this how everybody cooks them? And Danny goes, well, that's how I do it. I wonder if it's because Danny's brand new to New York and doesn't know how you cook meatballs. Is that what happens?
Maybe. I also don't really chuck spaghetti around the room to see if it sticks to walls.
No. It's quite interesting, isn't it? We saw a cookery show quite recently where one of the contestants on the show did that, and all of the professional chefs in the room went, what is she doing? Just like Joy did, even though you have Colleen protesting that this is something that all professional chefs do. It's just quite interesting that was something we just seen quite recently on another show. Anyway, that's it for this episode of Iron Fist. Hopefully we'll have some feedback to drop in just here, but if you want to send in any feedback to us, just email us at feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. Pop on over to our website to leave us a voicemail at defenderstvpodcast.com. Click the send voicemail button and it'll allow you to record up to 90 seconds of your thoughts. Or you can pop over to our Facebook group where we're putting up spoiler posts for each of the episodes of Iron Fist. Just go into the episode that you want to talk about, leave the feedback there, and that's over at facebook.com/groups/DefendersTVPodcast.
We have our first bit of feedback from Ray over on our Facebook group. Yes, for episode 2. Ray goes, just finished episode 2. I'm really liking how Mary is being developed. I had a few fears she would both be portrayed and written poorly, but Alice Eve does a good job at the tortured Mary. Davos is looking more and more deadly with his sleight of hand at Mr. Yang, and the fight to face Xiao Lao between Danny and Davos was superb. There's no gladiatorial arena like in the comics, but the ritual had weight which gave it significance. Finally, that yellow ceremonial mask looks sick on Danny. I hope we see him regain the garb in present day. Thank you, Ray, for that feedback. Yeah, I really hope that ceremonial mask is used in the present by Danny. I thought it looked really good on both of them. And yeah, the setting for that fight to face Xiao Lao was pure epicness.
Yeah, that fight was absolutely fantastic. Really, really enjoyed it. And it's such an epic moment, great from the comics, to take that battle between these two characters and bring it into the TV show. As we said, something that we wanted to see all the way back in season 1, and really glad to get to see it on screen in this season. Thanks so much for that feedback, Ray. And for any of our listeners who don't know, Ray's a member of the collective, like ourselves, a bunch of podcasts about comic books. Ray runs a podcast about Moon Knight called Into the Night. Definitely check that out if you're interested in Moon Knight. Our next piece of feedback is a piece of voicemail feedback that comes from Ryan, who sent it in over on our website at defenderstvpodcast.com.
How you doing, guys? Ryan here. Good to hear you all back for season 2 of Iron Fist. I'm going to give a quick review for episode 1. All in all, I liked it. You can tell they've spent time on the fight scenes. Finn Jones has definitely been practicing, and you can tell by the less cut scenes in a fight scene. So we all know that they do that to hide up stuff, and fair play, they've actually spent the time, and I think it was obviously widely said that they spent time doing that. I like the fact that Danny's not dealing with the Riot Enterprise side of things. He's kind of back on the streets, and he wants to kind of get to know the people and helping remove a company, although his boss would definitely not be happy with him, the way he blocked him and just stepped in the situation. But I've got a feeling that that's probably a character that we're going to see in later episodes. Good to see Joy and Ward back. Don't know how Danny was so calm with Joy. I could definitely tell something was up there, and we were proved by that when she went to meet up with Davos later on in the episode. Davos' stories were going to be a bit interesting, see what happens. Hopefully, I think we're going to get a bit of a background. I only watched one trailer, by the way. I was stung by Jessica Jones, so I've only watched one trailer, and I have a feeling we might see some stuff to do with Davos. But all in all, good start to the season. Liking it so far. Loving your review, and speak to you soon, guys. Take care.
Thanks so much for that, Ryan. Yeah, totally agree with you on the fight scenes for this season. I know we always talked about it back in season 1 that unfortunately Finn Jones didn't get a huge amount of training time before season 1 started. I think it was somewhere in the region of about 3 weeks. So by the end of the season, he'd done about 6 or 7 months of fight training. Whereas this time he's had a couple of months of training these individual scenes. So it does really show through.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. And I think it's a testament to the new fight coordinator that, you know, he's getting them to do the fights. So he's really ingraining it into them, you know, in the same way as learning the lines. It's that repetition, and it really shows. And it's nice to see. Absolutely agree. Loving sort of the street level, moving into Chinatown, or making Chinatown, I would say, more of a focus for this character. That's really good. Yeah, Davos. I just love his deadpan delivery of some of the most virtuous thoughts ever. You know, he is really showing his fanatical, disciplined, puritanical kind of self.
Yeah.
So really enjoying that. And yeah, I mean, Davos is going to be massive for this season, really, and how that comes across. So yeah, thank you so much for the voicemail, Ryan. You know, voicemail is a great way to send in feedback, everyone. So if you want to send in some feedback, please head on over to defenderstvpodcast.com and go to the voicemail tab on the right hand section to leave 90 seconds of your thoughts or discussion points.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Ryan. Let's get on to some feedback from our Facebook group over at facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV Podcast. Jamie Young says, I love how this episode gets right into the thick of things. Much better setup than the first episode of season 1, I think. Davos is so serious and intense. Can't wait to see more of Typhoid Mary. What exactly is Joy plotting? I've ordered Chinese food and I'm about to press play for episode 2. I love Marvel Netflix weekends. Totally agree with you, Jamie. Marvel Netflix weekends are definitely the best weekends out there, aren't they? I really
They really are, and absolutely agree. You know, with Typhoid Mary and with Joy, I can't wait to see what these two ladies are up to in this series.
Yeah.
Selima Kisler over on Facebook says, I liked episode 1, but why are Joy and Davos such brats? About your review podcast for episode 1, I don't think Jerry Hogarth is working for Joy. I think she's loyal to Danny. Good point regarding Joy's anger, but I think it's misdirected. Ward was under Harold's thumb the entire time. Harold was alive in secret, and Harold forbid him from telling Joy. I don't think Ward liked keeping it from his sister, and was already crushing him inside. and for Danny needing to learn what it's like to have everything ripped from him. I agree, Salim. You know, I think Joy's anger is misdirected, however much she feels pain by what happened. And certainly, I think, you know, that comes out within these episodes and a bit further along in the series for sure. Right. It's really become maybe a sticking point for her, and she can't see past it at all. And it's interesting you bring up Jerry Hogarth as well, because, you know, we haven't talked about Jerry much so far, and it's a shame we haven't got her in the series up to this point. And I'm just wondering whether we will see her here. You know, we do know she's kept the big Rand Enterprises contract, but it would be absolutely fabulous to see Jerry Hogarth still within the Iron Fist canon on Marvel Netflix.
Yeah, I think this just comes from the kind of joke that I was making in the first episode as to whether Joy was being represented by Jerry when she went up against Rand Enterprises. But as you pointed out back then, she works for Rand Enterprises and has the Rand Enterprises contract, so pretty unlikely that she was working for Joy. But it would have been nice to see her.
Yeah, absolutely. Robert Phillips says, great opener. I was a little nervous given season 1 and hoped we would get the Defenders version of him. And we did. Cool, calm, and confident in a Chinese restaurant with food or fists. Now we don't have whiskey or books, but are we having Wine Watch this season, John Harrison? And what's going on with the stubble, beard, transitional facial hair thing? That is true. There is a lot of wine being poured from that island unit in the dojo. Mm-hmm. So maybe we could do a wine watch, actually, but I suspect it would be a lot of Pinot Noir.
I think we've missed out on it, haven't we? I think we've missed wine watch.
I think we have, yeah. And
great catch there, Robert.
And certainly Stubble Watch would be interesting because he is certainly looking a little more clean cut in season 2 is Danny Rand. You know, saw a few episodes of season 1 and he was a little more raggedy, for sure. So he has sharpened up, dare I say it.
Yeah.
Not only with regards to his cool, calm and confident approach to both food and fighting, but also with the Wild Barnet with regards to his hair and indeed his beard. Yeah, absolutely.
I think he's moved on from hobo Danny to boyfriend Danny, being taken care of a little bit more, taking care of himself a little bit more now that he's living with Colleen. I think that's where we are now. Thanks so much for that feedback, Robert.
Yeah, thanks, Robert, for the feedback. Always great to hear from you.
Jim Carrey also has some feedback about episode 1. He says, much better episode pacing. The opening action was great because it was action, but I was a bit bugged by the discrepancies and was taken out of it a lot. The worst of it is there's an aerial view of Danny facing the truck, then it shows the truck speeding towards him and him running towards the truck, speeding, running, speeding. As an aside, I think a martial arts dude would be trained not to expend energy and wait for it. Anyway, they're still speeding and running. Come on, that aerial view didn't have them in different burrows. I'm kind of setting aside that a powerful fist would not do what that did to his truck. He's not Megasonic Hyper Emo Splodo Girl.
Excellent.
Next, Danny is hiding behind the bulletproof door of the truck. He waits till the guys reload, both of them at once. Oh well. Then he opens the metal door real fast on a guy who really had no reason to get closer to the door since Danny just peeked out. What does he have, radar sense now? More curmudgeonly comments from me later, maybe, but I'm liking it after episode 2 so far, and since I don't know much about Mary, I'm intrigued by her.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim. Yeah, totally agree with you on Mary. I'm really intrigued by her. I don't know a lot about Typhoid Mary. Yeah, I was really excited by the potential that she could be in Jessica Jones to learn a bit more about her in terms of the brother-sister pairing above Jessica Jones's flat. So it's really good to see her here in Iron Fist, and so far I'm really liking that. In terms of the action, I'm really liking the action. I mean, I suppose some of these choices in terms of how they frame the action or how he tackles people with guns, it will be interesting. I think one of the points in the first episode on the podcast was that, you know, we do know that his Iron Fist can block bullets, but I suppose when up against a semi-automatic machine gun. He probably does need that bulletproof door of the armored van. So I can kind of see what you mean, but I am really liking the action, and I do like the Megasonic Hyper Emo Splodo Girl reference. Excellent. Excellent stuff.
Yeah, I'm really liking the action. I think it was really good to have a huge scene of action at the beginning of the episode. And these things are like dances, you know, you got to see them the way they're being put on screen. You know, possibly he'd be doing something different if it was real life, but this is supposed to be an exciting opener for the episode, and I think it accomplished that. Thanks so much for that, Jim. On to episode 2, Doug Green says, Mary is creepy as hell. I was not expecting the Danny Davos flashback to fight to happen here. I thought we'd see it in episode 6 or something, or they'd maybe piece it out over the entire season. I am so glad they brought that fight up front. It's really good to see that fight between Davos and Danny up in the second episode in Kunlun.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Doug, for the feedback. I agree. Mary is creepy, and a bit like with Jim's feedback, I'm intrigued by her. I want to see how Mary is in this series. So far, really enjoying how she's being portrayed, and certainly I think the great thing about this series so far is so much has happened up front. Like you say, this Danny Davos flashback to the fight to challenge Xiao Lao, you know, in episode 2, really bringing it to the fore in the same way that for episode 1, we got Mary in episode 1. She's there in episode 2. They're bringing this character straight to the fore of the series, as well as Davos and Joy and what they're plotting. So really, really good. I'm really enjoying that sort of bold approach by the showrunner. Also on for episode 2, Jamie Young says, my biggest complaint about season 1 was not enough Kunlun or insight into Danny and Davos's relationship. So I'm really glad we didn't have to wait long to see that flashback. I love how it was interwoven into the episode, and so bloody. More flashbacks, please. Yeah, the Kunlun stuff so far has been great. I think there was a lot from ourselves on Defenders TV podcast, the fact that we really wanted to see Kunlun and see it in terms of Danny and Davos. Even, I think, I certainly wanted to see Madame Gao's relationship to that magical, mystical city. And I think it's really good seeing a real grand fight arena with these two in it. And I hope we see more of Kunlun and to get an insight as to why the city is so important. Why does it drive Davos the way it does? And the way it should drive Danny. You know, it's a bit like Gotham in a sense. It's a fundamental part, this city, of Danny's personality and characteristics. So it's really important that we see Kunlun. And you're right, season 1 didn't have enough of that. And it's good to be getting some really nice snippets of Kunlun and the people from Kunlun, including Danny and Davos, now in season 2. So long may it continue.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely took that learning from season 1, I think. Really enjoyable. And finally, for this feedback section, a bit on episode 3, this episode we just talked about. Jamie Young says, that was destined to be the most awkward dinner ever, and it didn't disappoint. I definitely understand Joy's pain and anger, but I really want to know what she's up to. She's coming across as powerful and dangerous, which is a stark contrast from her innocence and vulnerability in season 1. I was wondering how Mary would tie into the rest of the plot. I like how we're only getting short but very intriguing scenes with her. The suspense is killing me. Thanks for that, Jamie. Yeah, Joy does feel a lot more dangerous this season. It feels like she's been groomed a little bit by Davos to be this much more powerful kind of person. Doesn't seem as vulnerable as she was in season 1, although she was quite a strong character in season 1, but she doesn't seem as vulnerable as she let herself be in season 1. I think that's part of how much she's hardened by the death of her father and by her actions now to take retribution on Danny and Ward. I think that's where what we're kind of seeing in there.
No, absolutely. She is definitely a lady with a focus and a focus of revenge. And certainly I think she has been conditioned to really look out for herself. Having said that, I also do think one of the great things about the way Joy is being portrayed is there's a few moments that just link her back to her character in season 1. I think in particular for me, it was from episode 1 of the series so far where, you know, she arranges the meeting with Danny and with her brother Ward. And after that, when she's speaking with Davos, she says, he was kind to me. You know, and Davos does think that maybe she is reconsidering what they're going to do. Now, she doesn't know, and I would say more of that will get explained later on in the series, but it's a nice little kind of touch point back to her relationship with Dany, which was very brotherly, sisterly, much more so than with her biological brother Ward. So it's a nice little touchback point, I think, for the character.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder if we'll see any M&Ms this season.
Indeed.
That's the end of the feedback section. Thanks so much for all that feedback. As you can see, our fellow defenders are watching the episodes in all different ways over this weekend, and probably will be over the course of the season. If you want to send any feedback at all to us, regardless of what episode it is, just mark it with the episode number and send it into feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. We do this because we love hearing from you guys. We love hearing your thoughts on the individual episodes. If there's anything we missed out, let us know. We'll talk about it in our feedback sections in upcoming episodes. Or if you want to do what these guys did, pop on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/DefendersTVPodcast, and we'll have spoiler posts up for each of the episodes where you can pop in your thoughts and talk to the other fellow defenders about theirs.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for all the feedback, and keep it coming on in. Yes, and remember, you can join us on any magical or mystical podcast catcher of your choice to listen to our coverage of Season 2 of Iron Fist by heading on over to DefendersTVPodcast.com and going to the subscribe section, where you can grab Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Stitcher, or any other podcast catcher of your choice. Please subscribe, rate us, and leave a review. Sharing the podcast is absolutely sharing the love.
Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back with the next podcast, which is on Iron Fist 204, Target Iron Fist. That should be coming out on Tuesday the 11th of September. Might be a little bit before that, but should be out on Tuesday the 11th. I'm looking forward to watching that one.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds very military. It feels like there's an airstrike coming in on Iron Fist. So let's see what happens. Can't wait to catch episode 4.
Thanks so much for joining us, fellow defenders. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you so much for joining us, fellow defenders. As always, it is a pleasure speaking with you. I'm off to find whatever blows my skirt up. And once I'm back and I'm properly attired and dressed following my skirt being blown up, we'll speak with you again next time. Bye.